Ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Building El Salvador. My name is Michael Ruiz,
And I'm Jordan Herbs.
and we're two entrepreneurs who have uprooted our lives to move to El Salvador and create value. And one of the ways we did that is we just hosted a retreat after 2 months of living here. And it was a very successful retreat. It was epic, actually. And so it still didn't come without its hiccups. And so in this episode, what you're going to do is you're going to hear us talk about all the lessons we learned putting on this retreat, the mistakes we made, the insights we gained. And this is all so we can just learn and grow and be better together. And we have a list of principles today that we're going to go over and overlay that with our specific experience to extract the most value we can. And like I said, so we can all get better. So, Jordan, you want to start us off?
Yeah, well, I just want to say this process of reflection and processing through these kinds of things, these lessons we've learned, are just super important for consolidating ourselves and moving forward. And so it's good that we're doing this as a team. It's good that we do it on personal levels and then we do it here together so we can move forward to make the next one even more epic.
Yeah, and if you're listening to this out there, and I guess you are, we're doing this in real time. It's actually a team exercise at the same time as being a podcast. So you're going to hear the real deal, uncut, unfiltered reflections from, all of us here in the studio.
Is that a good opportunity for an air horn? I can't reach the board anyway. All right. So the first thing we got listed here: handle any disagreements right away. Don't let things fester. Don't let resentment build.
Yeah, well, I think that there's multiple parties in this retreat that we're working, right? It turned out that I don't know how many chats we had going on, but I realized how much it takes to put something like this together, an event like this together, especially in a time span. We had, I don't know how many vendors we worked with. On top of that, the multiple parties within, each company. And so disagreements would come up, and a good way to keep those disagreements isolated and then limited in the impact that they have or disruption that they have is to address them right away. That's what I got out of things. Whenever there was a discrepancy, whenever there was miscommunication, whenever there was disagreement, it was like, okay, well, let's stop right here. Let's handle this right now. Let's get it ironed out so that we can move forward. So that's one of the things that I realized on this, how important that is, especially when you're collaborating and cooperating amongst numerous parties.
Yeah, it's kind of like any relationship. When there's some kind of misunderstanding or miscommunication or disagreement, if you don't talk about it right away, or at least you let time pass and it really does like bother you or affect you, then everything starts to take place in your mind, which is a closed walled garden because there's no outside input to help you process through it, which makes those misunderstandings, miscommunications even worse. And then you start imagining what it could be like, and this person said this, but I think blah, 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 blah. So yeah, whether I think it's an interpersonal relationship on a personal level or in a professional level, just talk about it, get it through so you can move forward and get the work done.
Yeah. This is just a side note on that. I learned this from one of my old bosses, Michael Wright, great guy. One of the things that he would tell us is like, hey, if you can pick up a phone and communicate it, do that before writing an email, just because the latency and the opportunity for misinterpretation presents itself when it's through email. But if you have an actual dialogue, you can infer a lot through that.
Yeah, and even we have this later on the list. We'll move it to now, but the chat groups have been super valuable, and especially in this day and age where you can just communicate with voice notes, so you don't even need a phone call. You can send the voice note, communicate your humanity, what's going on, in a way that if you just typed it out, it could still come off. It could still be misunderstood or misinterpreted. So to be able to send a voice note on both sides, receive a voice note, send a voice note, and this happened for me personally with one of the parties that we were working with. there was a disagreement or misunderstanding, and it wasn't until voice notes were exchanged that it cleared up. Like, oh, okay, yeah,
Dude,
good point.
You know what this reminds me of? Have you ever seen that Key and Peele sketch? Sketch? What do you call that?
A sketch.
Yeah, where they're like communicating to each other. One guy's like thinks everything's all good, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll meet you over here. I'm gonna be like 5 minutes late." And one of the other dude is like, 5 minutes late. He's like taking it all personal, and like they're having two separate conversations through text, each one interpreting the conversation differently. It's freaking hilarious, dude.
No, I haven't seen that.
You got to see it. But yeah, that communication's is a big part of this, especially when multiple parties are involved, and making sure everyone was staying on the same page. One of the things I realized too was, man, telecommunication technology, like Telegram, the different chats that we're using, it was vital for this type of collaboration to occur. It makes me realize again just how amazing the time that we're living in. Like, we're living in a time right now where we have the tools to do really cool stuff. And I feel like this is the opportunity we have to leverage them and build a world, right, that transcends whatever the past world was. Like, let's move on to something better with the technology that we have, Bitcoin being a major part of that. But there's so many other different aspects to like this network technology that's emerging, that's going to allow us to cooperate and collaborate on levels that we've never seen before.
We planned all of this and executed within 6 weeks. And I cannot imagine being able to accomplish something like that before the age of these chat apps and voice notes and all of that. Could you imagine trying to organize everything on landlines for this retreat, or even just email, and the latency, all the time that would need to pass to get things figured out, and the amount I wasn't even opening like our transportation group, right, to figure all that out. It's like there's like hundreds of messages unread, and I'm seeing it like, what are they talking about in there? Like, like all of that, could that be figured out in one phone call? Probably not. How many phone calls would it take? So that's just it speaks to the times we live in. Look what we can accomplish.
Yeah. And the other cool thing is that we don't have to be all connected at once to then reach consensus, right? You can step back and handle what you need to handle, and then catch up on the chat and read everything that was discussed, which is really cool.
Yeah, which I did not do for that particular chat.
Yeah. And and another thing about this retreat that I realized too as an entrepreneur is the importance of like consistent action, going step by step, letting the path reveal itself, breaking down big tasks into smaller goals, creating a roadmap, things like that, where it was just basic. The basic idea here is step by step, consistent action gets you really, really far. If you just apply that every day, it's amazing what one person can do, but then let alone 4 or 5 people operating, on that principle. It's amazing to see. It's so simple, and so many people don't do it, but if they did it, it like 100% works.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. They come together slowly but surely, and even the things that we kind of put off to the last minute, I think there were even a couple things that we were like, fuck it, we just don't have the bandwidth to manage that, but those still came together because we had enough people on the team that were aware that it needed to get done, and they still came together. And people didn't, no one would have even noticed. But here on the back end, we were like, oh, like, what do we do from here? How do we go? But
that goes into step by step, but that also goes into, having faith. And then I think you just said something there that made me realize how important it is to have everyone on the same page and understanding what the game plan is. Because, if everyone understands what's going on and they see a place where they can help, it's like they can act on their own agency to get it done because they know that, hey, that needs to get done.
Right. And shout out to my wife, Lau, because she pretty much had no part in it until like the last week or two when she was like, hey, do you guys have plates yet for the party? Hey, do you have like napkins or all this stuff that we just didn't even think about? And so she just started taking care of it. And that was awesome.
Yeah. And that, I think that, again, that speaks to also having faith. I think that our mission is, is one that people can gravitate towards and latch onto, because I feel like it's an idea whose time has come. We live in this day and
Mm-hmm.
age where we become atomized, and we want to reconnect. Not only that, but we want to reconnect in a way that, uplifts our individuality. And so the idea of sovereignty is really strong, and the idea of sovereign individuals coming together to create something bigger than themselves is feel like this is the time for that to happen. Like I said, we have the technology for that, and I think the circumstances around the world are also, pointing in that direction.
And it gives everyone an opportunity to feel purpose,
Yep.
which I think is lacking for many people in our society today.
And so, I have faith that, like, as long as we're mission oriented and pointed in that direction, and our actions are going towards, pushing that forward, that people are going to fill the gaps. I have faith that that's going to happen, because I feel like we're operating in good faith, right? And people resonate with that, and they want to gravitate for that. And we also provide the platform for that type of collaboration to happen within Sovereignty Studios. So yeah, I just kind of knew throughout the retreat there was things that I had no idea how they were going to get done, but I was able to relax just because I kind of had that faith.
Allow grace. People are growing and handle pressure differently. And that almost like juxtaposes the relaxing, because things are getting done.
Well, it does and it doesn't, right? Okay, so we all felt pressure. So this is we've moved on to another principle for anyone that's wondering how this conversation switched over. But yeah,
I'm just going down the list.
yeah. So this one is, realizing that we're all growing. This is all new to us. We're dealing with pressure, and to allow space for people to, wrestle with that. Not everyone's going to have, not everyone's going to be at their best every time, and that there are going to be moments where people, people have a bad day. And so to allow for that, to, buffer for that within your own internal composition, to not take things personal, and to let people go through it in order to come out the other end better.
Yeah. I mean, I'll own something that happened for me, which was there was a lack of communication. Talked about earlier, a disagreement thing that was festering in my head, not completely consciously. I didn't really realize it was happening, but then there was a high pressure moment where I just kind of had an emotional outburst. And yeah, I wasn't proud of that. It was just one of those moments. And then what's funny is then later on, I contacted the person saying, hey, that was, just not very mature, professional of me. I really apologize, blah, blah. And then they came back at me saying, actually, I thought the same thing happened on my end. So we were feeding off each other's energy there, but I'm glad we talked about it, blah, blah, blah. So yeah.
Me too, man. Me too. Like I had moments where I was like, nothing. That's the thing. There's nothing too major, right? It's just, them yourself, right? And for anyone else, they probably wouldn't think much of it.
They're much bigger deals in our heads,
yeah,
than they are most of the time in reality. Except like that video I sent you of that startup founder yelling at the barista for not making his coffee right. I'm busy closing deals. I don't have time for you to make me another coffee. Fortunately, I don't think, and well, I know nothing manifested like that for any of us in the retreat. In those cases, we see it. But yeah, if anyone actually had these things going on, you'd have to really know the person very well to actually notice it.
Yeah. I want to go back all the way to the beginning, because there was something we were talking about, which I can't remember now, but the idea of one of the big principles is kind of learning through iterations, right? Like it's the underlying principle, which we're all kind of focused on here. Because this retreat was our first one, and we knew that, we weren't going to be perfect. We knew that there would be shortcomings here and there. But we did the best we can, with the intention of doing exactly what we're doing now, reflecting, and then iterating, adjusting, and becoming better. And, I feel like that approach it's the step-by-step approach in a way, but, iterative learning I think is just the fastest way to grow. Like, as opposed to waiting for everything to be perfect, in line, set, in place. If we did that, we would have never got this retreat off the ground, right? So going into all of this, knowing that we are going to take what we did here, we're going to examine it, and we're going to improve upon it in order to, do another retreat even better, is kind of the fuel a little bit of you know what's keeping this going.
Yeah, so there were definitely things that we marketed the retreat as that we may have under delivered on, and other things we super over delivered on, for example. And at the end of the day, we can lean into those over deliveries and be like, okay, that's what we're good at. That's what we like. Let's make that part of the main offer, the main marketing communication. And these other things we either can outsource or delegate, bring someone else in to make that part better, or we just kind of remove it from the curriculum because obviously we weren't equipped to handle that. Maybe we just don't, maybe we don't even see it as part of the offer anymore. Like, oh, that's not even actually that valuable. We just kind of came up with it in the moment to put it in there. And then we see, no one really came for that. Okay. So that's part of the iteration process. And that goes into more, Hormozy style business building. It's like we're never going to be perfect. We have to keep doing it. You have to, even if it's for free in the beginning, you just put that service in front of people. You do it for people because then you get feedback. Not only social proof, if you do a good job, you get feedback. Hey, this is how you could do better. Or hey, here's a testimonial. You did great. And then you can start charging for it later. And then you charge more and more money for it because you're providing a great service. But you have to start somewhere. And the only way to start is to iterate.
Yeah. And speaking of doing things for free, this actually costs us money.
Exactly.
But we gained so much from it. I think, first of all, everyone in our team grew from it, just from that experience.
We also got closer. The team got a lot closer.
Yeah. It was definitely a team building exercise, right? And is Lily over there?
Yeah, the dog's on the table. I don't know what she could be doing down there. There's nothing to eat or...
She just likes to hang out and stand.
By the feet.
Yeah. So, we grew not only internally, but we grew together as a team. We developed new skill sets. We gained new experiences, right? We solidified certain concepts that were in our mind. Like for me, a lot of these personal development concepts are now like 100%. I'm convinced that they work, right? I have authority now to speak on it because I've actually lived on it. That's another thing, and it makes you more confident, right? And it makes you more sure that if you follow a certain formula, take certain actions, that you will get results.
So what could you give an example of personal development concepts that came up in the retreat that you feel like you excelled with?
I think so. Staying solution oriented and having a positive mindset was a big one, right? There were times where things seemed to not be going right, and again, this is all like behind the scenes, right? And they're little things, but they started adding up, and I felt my attitude going in a downward spiral, and just my thoughts becoming real negative. So number one, developing the awareness to stop and reflect and realize that that's happening to you. I think a lot of people, and me included back in the day, would just let that overtake me and overwhelm me. And I would sabotage things, or I would do a horrible job. And this time I was aware enough of when my mindset started going into that negative spiral to stop myself, and then to start implementing, different thoughts that took my mindset to a more present and proactive and solution oriented pattern of thinking.
Right. For me, what came up personal development wise was how the retreat completely broke our routines. And personally, I've been very proud of the routine I've been building the last few months here and what we're doing and personal brand and blah, blah, blah. And then the retreat came, and it's been basically like, 10 days since the retreat ended, a week before that. And it's taken a long time to get back into the routine. But the routine, it's showing me more and more just how important a solid routine is for getting stuff done and just for feeling fulfilled, for feeling like I'm actually doing something. because even if I'm getting stuff done without those habits I have in my routine to remind me, like, hey, you're doing this, hey, you're doing that, hey, you're doing that. Even like we were talking about yesterday, when you write that list of things you're doing throughout the day, then you can look at the end of the night and go, wow, I got a lot done. But when you're not writing it, you don't realize like you're getting a lot done. And psychologically, you need that. And so I was just recognizing, wow, without my routine, I feel like nothing. I feel like that downward spiral happening, even if not so much is changing from the day to day, but just these little things. And I just recognized that which of those habits I had solidified into my routine and which I hadn't, because the ones that weren't solidified, it's taken time to start doing again.
Yeah. Yeah. It also builds resiliency in that case too, right? The fact that you're able to perform and you're able to be productive despite the chaos of handling an event for 4 days with 30 plus people every day, um, also lets you know that you can handle a little bit of disruption in your life and still get stuff done.
Yeah, and all during all that disruption, the whole time I thought about it was I can't wait to get back to my routine because I just feel like I can ground in that routine. I can settle, I can find alignment again. And
Yeah.
then sure enough, it kept going off of it after the retreat was over.
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, sometimes you take an exit or if for like a highway analogy, and it's just like, well, you're stuck on that exit until you can get back onto the highway, right? Like you're stuck going down this road until you can get back on. And so,
Especially in San Salvador,
yeah.
until you find the U-turn. Which actually, that's actually a point we have on here as well. Another principle: the retreat is not over when it's over.
Yeah.
And that's what my routine situation made me realize, is that there's all this leftover energy that still needs to kind of find its way out, whether that's people that stick around, whether that's meetings, whether that's bills that are still to be paid. There's still a lot to wrap up after the days are over.
Yeah. I mean, that goes into this idea that you need to know what it takes in order to be successful. Need to know the amount of work that it's going to take to be successful, and be ready to work 10 times that amount, in order to pull it off. And that sets expectations. Like the next retreat, I know, hey, when the retreat is over, you can't relax, right? Don't let your mindset go into relaxation mode, because you still got to close off all the loose ends. You got to pay all the vendors. You got to handle, anything else that's left over from the retreat. And that takes about a week. So, next retreat, I go in there with that expectation. I go in there with that kind of preparation and planning. And I know that the following week I'm still working, and that increases the chances of me having a successful,
There's also
post week retreat,
There's also another route to take theoretically, which probably comes with its own lessons. But hey, let's prepare. And, we had problems paying vendors because we don't have a bank account here, right? So it's like, oh, we got to pull out cash. They don't accept Bitcoin. But the other way to go about it would be start getting all the cash before, so we can pay off the vendors right then and there. So that's not lingering, right? And then we could say, hey, we're not scheduling meetings or team barbecues or having guests that week after the retreat, because we need to relax. So both, there's no right or wrong here, but I see it as we actually could look at it either way. Like, yeah, that next week, keep it booked because there's going to be loose ends to tie. Or it's like, no, wait a minute. How do we solution-oriented mindset, right? Like, how do we just tie all the loose ends up as they finish?
Well, I mean, that goes into another principle, which is just preparation, right?
Right.
Having a game plan, also contingency planning and so forth. Identifying what could go wrong and already trying to mitigate the risks of that happening. All of that is just baseline, what anyone can do anywhere across the board to be successful at anything. Is the preparation and the planning. And so part of that is like already having a game plan post week of the retreat, right? Like, all right, I'm going to handle all the closed accounts. Jordan, Matthias, you guys work on the marketing right away. Paul, you handle any issues or any communication with the guests. And that way everyone knows what they're doing, and the operations are just a lot more efficient.
Right.
Instead of putting out fires, we have a regimented routine which we can follow. And then you talk about, getting back into routine. That itself, the fact that we know how post week is going to look like for all of us may allow each of us to get back into our routine faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not necessarily accounting for personal, just like need for maybe some space and like a day off, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to take a deep breath after that 5 days and just like come back to myself.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, we're human beings dealing with all these people, as well as putting a retreat together, going 30 days with limited sleep and 12-hour work days, and then coming and, having all this energy projected at you from the retreat, and then having the pressure of making sure everyone's taken care of and doing well. I realized that's, I put my body and my mind through a gauntlet, the last 30, 45 days or whatever.
Yeah, you did.
And so, there was one day that I knew that if I went on this excursion that I would be absolutely shot.
Yeah, that was the first morning, Michael. Hey, Jordan, you got to do this one today.
Yeah.
But I get it. And that's why I was like, yeah, dude, you got to rest because we can't have you shot.
Yeah. And it goes to also the value of the retreat, right? You want to make sure you're in good physical condition, you're in good mental condition, so you could be good company to the guests. They're partly there for us, right? And so making sure that, I was taking care of myself, my well-being was a big factor that revealed itself how important it is on this retreat.
And that's something that takes people a long time to learn, right? They're used to just grinding, oh, I can do anything. And then you get in this movement, especially when there's lots of people involved. A retreat is a big deal. There's a lot of energy going on. There's people, there's food, there's party, there's so much that like our physiology just needs time to just process through it, to come back to a baseline so it can keep handling more. It's not just like having your routine, working on your computer, drinking your coffee, going to the office, whatever. It's a completely different ball game.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's up?
So we got a question here. Would Sovereignty Studios be interested in organizing a retreat in Bitcoin Jungle in 2025?
Where's this question coming from?
YouTube chat.
We have a YouTube chat? Oh,
yes, sir.
Sweet.
That's cool.
In Costa Rica.
All right. So congratulations to you, whoever you are. That's our first
question.
Live question.
Yes, there you go.
Milestone for Sovereignty Studios as well. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Paul Keating. He's my boy down in Bitcoin Jungle. But I'm sure we'd talk about that with
yeah. So what's
fun?
Another
build in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
Retreat.
I haven't listen, I'll just give a quick story. My prior to COVID, I was supposed to take a trip to Costa Rica. I had to cancel it because of, all the chaos around COVID. So yeah. I've been meaning to get back down there.
And my wife won't leave me alone. She's like, while we live here, we have to go to Costa Rica. We have to go to Guatemala. We have to see these places.
Yeah. But here's another lesson going, just piggybacking off of that. It's been cool because when you start taking these steps, when you start acting towards your goals, when you have a mission and you're oriented towards that mission, I always say that the world, and I didn't originate this, of course, but I can vouch that it's true. It's kind of like the world conspires to help see you through, right? If you know where you're going, people will step aside to let you pass. And not only that, they will help you get to where you're going. And so after the retreat, first of all, we don't know whether this is going to succeed or fail or do anything, but we just continue to push forward. And then we get all of these, we get a few requests for people to come check out their property and to consider doing a retreat there. And we just got another one now. And so you don't know what opportunities and what kind of doors will open up. You just have to trust that as you walk the path, they will reveal themselves.
By the way, that's called pronoia. It's the opposite of paranoia. It's the belief that the world around you conspires to do you good, in contrast to the feeling of being conspired against.
I am
paranoid.
Pronoid. It sounds kind of gay, though.
Yeah, but it's kind of like that saying that was going around a few months ago, like increase your surface area for luck, build a network, do things, put your name out there, and then more doors naturally open. And like all it takes is one DM or one phone call and your whole life could change. right? You just got to keep doing, keep going, take massive action. And you never know what can happen. And the minute you believe you know is the minute you're closing all those doors.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'd be down to go to Costa Rica. And
well, what's interesting about that is like now we planned this retreat here. We did have I think we built most of our network by planning the retreat. Maybe not most of it, but a lot of it.
A lot of it. That's the other thing.
We know the vendors now. We have all that. So going to a new place, it's like, wow, where do we even begin?
An economy is such a large part of a society. Like our vendors, I like them. I like them as people. Like we invited a lot of them to our launch party, and I just realized, Ron Paul would always say this is like, if you want peace, trade, have nations trade with each other, open up the economy and let people interact with one another on that level, and you will see there will be peace. And so it just reminded me like of that economic principle. Like, yeah, man, a good way to create bonds and network with people is through economic commerce.
If goods don't cross borders, soldiers will.
Oh yeah, that's that saying. Exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of the vendors, we won't be working with again, but most of them that we did like were like, awesome, we want to work with you.
Yeah.
I was reading that Almanac of Naval this morning, and there's a little part in there where about how he has some investor deal closer guy in Silicon Valley that always comes to him first, and always will, like, if there's ever a dollar to round out, he rounds out in his favor, and always just like goes over the top for him. It's like, because of that, I do the same for him whenever I can. And it goes beyond just economic principles. It's just like when there's someone out there or some group that's just trying to do the best for you, trying to give, trying to offer, trying to be more selfless in a deal, you naturally want to do the same.
Yeah.
It's like the abundance mentality gets mirrored. And it's very healing, I think, for a lot of people. But that's what we're talking about here. It's like, wow, these vendors did such an awesome job. What can we do for them now?
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's where I would like in the future for our video content to go. One of the things that you said, which we got this video coming out, which is a vlog of us putting the retreat together, which is going to be epic. Jordan put it together. It's, in my opinion, some of his best work. I don't know why. Maybe just because it includes our story. So automatically I like it. But you guys check it out. But one of the things you said there is that Sovereignty Studios, and I'm guessing you're talking about Sovereignty Studios as the company, not as the social movement, which makes a lot of sense. What we do, what our value proposition is we make you look good on camera.
Yeah, we create the conditions to make you look good on camera.
Yeah, and it's cool because a lot of people have, they have skills, they have a product that they want to market, and maybe they don't know how. A lot of people don't know how, right? Like, all of a sudden we all have a studio in our pocket, and some people have figured out how to utilize it, and some people need coaching and help to do that, and some people need professional support, and we offer that. Like, Sovereignty Studios offers that, and like, our work speaks for itself. You're gonna look good on camera. You're gonna see yourself in a different light as well. One of the things that I realized when I was working with you, Jordan, and I started doing work on camera and you started editing it, I started to believe that this was possible, and belief is such a big deal, such a big motivator, and it's a driver. And so when you see yourself on camera and you see yourself on camera in a different light, you're like, wow, the possibilities like become apparent to you.
Yeah, you start to believe,
and you want to work harder. You want to get it done because you can see now the potential.
That's why I've always said video is a manifestation tool in so many ways. Like what you just said is a way to build confidence and go like, oh, wow, there is a future for me here. But you can also use it to announce the things you want to make real. And as we know, that's the principles of reality. You want to make something real, you say it, you repeat it, you tell the world, and you make it real through the actions and through by the communication of it. And so video is a very powerful tool for that.
Yeah, and honestly, like, a lot of the videos that I did were edited to make me look better than I presented myself on camera.
Great.
Which was awesome.
Yeah,
but here's what happens is that I start to believe I'm that person. I start to continue to practice being that person. And when it's time to perform, I am that person.
It's interesting, right? I think I
Yeah.
mentioned it in that video. I'm like, I don't know why everyone loves Michael Ruiz brand so much, but they love him. And I'm stoked about that. But it's interesting, right? Because it's like this presentation, how you put out, and then you slowly become that person. And then like, great, everyone loves it. Everyone loves you.
Yeah, it's kind of like habit building, right? It's like you do this enough times, over time, it just gets integrated into your personality.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Or yeah, and so yeah, I forgot where we were here. But maybe we're talking about the value of preparation. But going back on that note, this is a separate item, but it kind of is adjacent to preparation, which is, I knew that in order to perform at my best, I needed to lay off the drinks, right? I needed to stay as sober as possible. Because physically working 12 hours days and getting little sleep, that takes enough toll on my body. And not that I'm an alcoholic or anything like that, but even 1 or 2 glasses of wine or something like that could throw my whole morning off. And I knew that I got to be up at 5 a.m. in order to prep and get my day started. And so one of the things that I realized is like, hey, I got to add friction to me and my vices. And so one of the things I did was create a $300 bounty paid in Bitcoin for anyone that saw me with a drink. And it worked. It worked. I was able to stay sober and clear-minded and wake up with energy and get stuff done because I knew that this was a big moment and I needed to be at my best. And so, part of that, knowing who you are, knowing how you operate, and kind of mitigating the risks for sabotage or downward spirals is another aspect to the preparation.
It also made those first beers at the retreat that much sweeter.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in the video you actually like have me drinking my first beers when I'm
when you open the door for
when
them.
I'm at the door and I'm double fisting beers.
Yeah, what was cool about that whole retreat is we did so much prep that we were pretty much allowed to just enjoy ourselves at the retreat.
Yeah, it got to a point where I was like, all right, we did so much. We went
It's out of our hands.
Yeah, we did as much as we humanly can. There's nothing else that we can do to possibly make this better. Now things just need to fall in place. And that's when when I realized that, I was just like, okay, pressure's off, having a couple drinks, and I'm going to enjoy myself and mingle with the guests because they're going to want me in my best mood. And so,
yeah, and that's almost a part of the retreat, right? It's like you should be having a few drinks to make it better for the guests. So you're a part of it instead of just managing in the background or stressed out the whole time.
Yeah.
Part of the offer.
It's weird, I know that a lot of people, like alcohol is the devil in a lot of ways, but I don't know. Sometimes just to go from manager mode to like chill mode, crisp, cool beer kind of helps solidify that division.
Yeah, and then the whole thing, they say it's a social lubricant. So especially on that first afternoon, everyone's arriving, saying hi, and there's always maybe an odd bird out or two. And, after you've had a beer, then it's easier to go talk to the person where otherwise it might feel awkward. I mean, it's almost like a healthy component, especially that first day when everyone's getting to know each other.
Sure. So, the other thing I did on this retreat, and this is big, it goes into like the idea of having mentors, but it's tapping into the wisdom of people who have gone down this path already, right? And getting their advice and hearing what they have to say and asking them what to look out for. So I did this with Chef Javier. Shout out to Chef Javier. But one of the things I asked him is like, hey man, you do a lot of events, you're a chef. Tell me the things that can go wrong. Right? Tell me the things that we need to look out for. And he was more than happy to share that with me. Gave me a ton of good advice, a ton of good info. And, it helped. And I did this with other people as well. Sabrina was another huge resource in that regard, right? One, she knows the property, but two, she's also seen events and planned events. And so getting her input throughout the retreat on what we should do, on what the decisions we should make was big. So I guess to sum this up, the principle here is like, utilize the resources that you have around you to gain wisdom that's going to help you in your own endeavor. And so a lot of that goes into like this idea, like I said, of finding mentors. If mentors, they speed up the learning process and they help you avoid like major pitfalls.
Yeah, definitely. And that goes for any realm of anything.
Yeah.
Use the mentors, invest in yourself. Our favorite Alex Hormozy said recently, like, you always have diamond hands on yourself. Like, no matter what, you invest in yourself, you can't go wrong because you are there. You're invested in yourself till the day you die.
Yeah. The best bet you can make is on yourself.
Yeah. So mentors in that regard, whether it's for you or for just the project you're doing, it's an invaluable resource.
Man, and then going off of the retreat, just in general in my life, I've hired mentors before. And like, these are well-known names, within the influencer space / coaching space. I paid good money for them, and it's the best money I've ever spent. Even if I didn't get what I thought I was going to get out of it, there was still something that I got out of it that was really valuable, and that maybe I realized later down the line, and so they teach you a lot because especially when you pay for it, because you have to evaluate whether that money was worth it and whether you got what you wanted out of it and what is it that you actually even wanted. It takes you down this whole path of self-reflection. Not only that, but mentors just, again, they have a wealth of knowledge. They've walked down those steps before, and they can reveal a lot to you.
From a spiritual perspective, I always see an investment in a mentor or coach is like you're putting skin in the game, and that's it. Like, you're putting the money in, you're going to get the results based on the energy you put in to that money you put in. And yes, sure, if the coach is better, yeah, you'll probably have a better results. But like, it starts with you. You making that investment in yourself that is the big thing. That is the transformation. It comes from within you. And then that person you're hiring, that price tag on it is just it's a reflection on that transformation you're seeking and you're going to put into yourself.
Yeah. How do you feel about me plugging in my coaching offer that I just created?
Well, if I said no, would that sound like I'm an asshole? You're live on the show. Yeah, I feel great. Do it.
Well, yeah, and it's again, it's coming from a place like there might be people that are ready to take those first steps, that are tired of procrastinating. They're tired of the excuses they tell themselves. They know that they need to make a change in their life, or they know they need to go after this big goal, this big dream, this big aspiration that they have, but they just haven't found the motivation to do it. Yeah, I created a Kickstart coaching program through our school community, which is 6 weeks, and I help people develop the vision, set the goals, create the discipline in order to start the process. Because one of the things I realize is that, again, this seems like a process, right? It actually is a process. And, the first thing you want to do in a process is take the first step. And so for some people, it's just, getting that engine running, getting that motor running, and discovering and exploring. And so this is what this coaching program aims to do, is just kind of give them that kickstart to already start the process of the development that they need in order to either make big changes or work towards their goals.
And let me just say, people, if you haven't figured this out from listening to Michael, I'll say it. He knows his stuff. He's been into this pretty hardcore, well, since I met him, and I believe even for much longer than that. But Michael lives it. All the self-development, personal development things that he would coach, he lives it every day, every morning. He wakes up and he gets to it. He's always got lists and things he's writing down, and I've learned a lot from him. I take on things that you're not directly sharing with me that you do it, but I learned them from you. I have done your strongman challenge, which is part of your coaching curriculum. I don't know if it's part of this one, but is it? I learned a ton in there. The books you recommend, everything about how Michael lives is pretty much probably embodied in this coaching program. So that's my little testimonial.
Thank you, bro. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And I would echo the importance of mentorship too. I would not be here with you guys if it weren't for getting a videography mentor in 2022. And it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Like, so, and I've learned a lot from you, Michael. So
Yeah, you're living under his roof right now.
Yeah,
Under
Wow.
the same roof.
totally. It's very important.
Awesome. And listen, young Matt doesn't talk often, so when he does talk, it's important.
It's important.
Got
Yeah.
that, people?
That was awesome.
Are there any more principles on our list here?
I think that's it. I think we're pretty much good here, unless you got something that you wanna. The other thing I would say is that we went big. Probably lasting. We
Yeah.
went big. We pulled out all the stops and we went for it. Even to the point where we're giving away, $1,800 worth of hats at our retreat. We could have saved and skimped and cut corners in a lot of ways, but we didn't. So, it goes to the notion that if you shoot for the stars, you're gonna land on the moon. So go big, and even if you come up short, you're still winning. And we came up short in a lot of ways, but we were still way ahead because we set the goal so far.
10x goal, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the books in his curriculum.
Yeah. The 10x rule, man, that changed
10X
my whole
rule, yeah.
mindset. Did you like that book?
I loved that book. Yeah.
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 Besides that, guys, Adopting Bitcoin is coming up. The Adopting Bitcoin conference, November 16th, 17th.
14th, 15th.
Man, we got to know
somewhere
these
around
dates.
there.
Yeah, somewhere around there. El Salvador is absolutely going to be popping around that time. The Adopting Bitcoin conference, we know the organizers. We've been working with them. And I can tell you, it's going to be an epic conference. A lot of big names are coming out there. If you want to get a job or if you want to be part of the circular economy here in El Salvador, you definitely want to go to Adopting Bitcoin. You might, no, scratch that. You want to also get yourself a privileged access pass. This is going to get you into the areas where you can actually have conversations with the speakers and the movers and the shakers and the VCs that are all coming down here to explore the opportunities that El Salvador is offering. And yeah, we're going to be there. Sovereignty Studios is going to be there. So we hope to see you there. Get your privileged access pass and we'll hang out.
Discount code SOV Studios.
Yes, discount code SOV Studios, 10% off. And yeah, it's going to be epic. November.
Yeah, and we're also hosting a retreat the few days before the conference. So if El Salvador's been on your radar, if you're a Bitcoiner ready to go to Adopting Bitcoin, like, hey, I want to see El Salvador a little bit before. Well, you've heard everything we've learned from this last retreat, so you can pretty much expect the next retreat to be even better. And it will be a great opportunity to see the sites, meet some awesome people, and just have a good time. El Salvador is a great place. It feels very freeing to be here. I was thinking about it the other day, and we talked about this in some early episodes of the show, how it's like, it feels so good to leave the United States, the amorphous blob, the clown world, because it feels like everywhere you go, you have to deal with something about politics or people just living in fear. And now it's been like almost 3 months where there's like none of that here in El Salvador. So there is something that I think is kind of tangible about being down here. And I know it's election season and people are just kind of whack up in the States. So for many reasons, this is a great opportunity.
They're caught in the spell, and people's minds are being brainwashed right now, and they're being led in all different types of wacky ways. So yeah, it feels good to be here where, it's builders, movers, shakers, people who are interested in building a brighter orange future, all working, towards that goal. It's good energy.
Pronoia people.
Pronoia people.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We got a community call to hop onto. It's 2:00. School.com/Sovereignty Studios is our community. If you want to be part of these calls every Thursday, we have a group call. We talk about everything.
We got that scheduled for in half an hour. Anyways, yes. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic day. It was good chatting. Ciao. Peace.
See ya.